Nothing changes until you open your mouth and command it. That is not a metaphor. That is a spiritual law. That is the first principle, the final weapon, the secret, and the solution. Too many of you are suffering in silence, calling it surrender. Too many of you have mistaken stillness for faith, when what you are truly practicing is fear in disguise. You have sat in rooms filled with divine potential and said nothing. You have stood at the gate of your own promised land with your lips sealed, and the heavens have waited, not because they doubt your worth, but because they respond to your word. I say it plainly now. Your silence has become your agreement with delay. For it is written, "Open thy mouth wide, and I will fill it." Psalm 81:10. Not wish in your heart, not think positive thoughts, not wait and see. No, open thy mouth. That is the portal through which divine supply enters. That is the trumpet through which walls fall. That is the rod through which the Red Sea splits. The Word was in the beginning, and the Word is still how all beginnings begin. You must speak, not as a ritual, not as a chant, but as command. For the law responds not to hesitation, but to spiritual certainty. You see, silence in the face of fear is not neutral. It is agreement. When you do not speak against the lie, you validate it. When you do not interrupt the fear, it takes the microphone. When you say nothing, you declare something, and that something is surrender. But when you speak from the authority of divine mind, you shift the invisible. You rearrange the formless. You signal to the universe that a new architect has arrived and a new structure is to be built, now, not later. You are not waiting on your good is waiting on your voice. I have seen too many souls suffer under the illusion that silence is spiritual, that muteness is holy, that saying nothing is somehow safer than speaking wrongly. But I say this to you with love and clarity. It is more dangerous to be silent in fear than it is to speak in faith. You can correct a bold word, you can redirect a misspoken prayer, but you cannot harvest where you have never sown. And the seed is your sentence, the rain is your rhythm, the field is your faith. Nothing grows without a word, and no word can grow until it is spoken. So I ask you now, not as a suggestion, but as a divine interruption, what have you not spoken? What truth have you left unsaid in the name of waiting? What blessing have you delayed by withholding your decree? You were not sent to earth to observe. You were sent to create. You were not designed to cope. You were designed to command, and the law will not move until your tongue does. Say this with me now, and say it not softly, not apologetically, but with the tone of a soul who finally remembers why they were given a voice. I open my mouth, and heaven answers. I speak my good, and it appears. I no longer agree with delay through silence. You are not mute. You are not helpless. You are not waiting. You are the voice the miracle was waiting on, and now that voice has spoken, and so it is. You call it a waiting season. You call it a wilderness. You say, I'm in transition, or God must be doing something behind the scenes. But let me tell you what that season really was. A mute season. A season not of delay by divine design, but delay by spiritual hesitation. You were not being tested. You were being quiet. You were not lost in the mystery. You were muzzled by fear, uncertainty, or false humility. And nothing moved because your mouth did not. I remember a woman who came to me, faithful, sincere, devoted in her seeking. She had fasted. She had prayed. She had tithed, affirmed, journaled, visualized. But still, her life felt stuck. Her finances had not moved in years. Her relationships felt cold. Her body was weary. And with all this, she asked me, "What am I missing?" I said to her, "You're doing everything except the one thing that opens the gate." She blinked. "What is that?" she asked. I said, "You have not spoken with command. You have asked, but not decreed. You have hoped, but not ruled. You have whispered, but not declared. You've treated your mouth like a suggestion box, not a throne. Understand me well. The Spirit waits not for perfection, but for obedience to law. And the law is this: nothing begins until the tongue obeys the Spirit. You cannot manifest in silence. You cannot shift a thing by mentally agreeing with truth while vocally agreeing with fear. You cannot ride the winds of destiny with your lips sealed shut. God does not force your blessing upon you. God fills your decree. God manifests your spoken word. Even the very breath of creation was preceded by speech. Let there be light. And light appeared, not before, not during, after the command. So too with your healing, your wealth, your restoration, your clarity. It does not arrive until it is spoken into form. Your mute season was not proof that you were abandoned. It was proof that you had not yet remembered your voice. And when you do remember it, you must wield it not with performance, but with certainty, not to impress, but to initiate, not to explain, but to command. The word is not casual, it is causal, and silence in the face of need is not reverence, it is spiritual withholding. So now we do what the woman did. We reverse the agreement. She stood up that day, tears in her eyes but fire in her mouth, and she said, I cast out every silent agreement with lack. Not, I hope lack leaves. Not, God, please remove it. But, I cast it out. She spoke as one who realized that her voice was the gate through which all things must pass. And within days, the shift began. Supply that had been circling her life without landing suddenly touched down. Favor that had been delayed with no reason found its way through. Not because she became more deserving, not because the world changed, but because she did. And it began with her mouth. So speak this now, not because I told you to, but because the season demands it. I cast out every silent agreement with lack. I cancel every unspoken contract with delay. I no longer worship at the altar of silence. I speak, and life obeys. The mute season is over. Your voice has returned. And the law is listening. And so it is. Look around you. Everything you see, every building, every system, every invention, every structure began not with action, but with word. Before the brick, there was blueprint. Before the form, there was phrase. Before any manifestation touched the earth, a sentence was spoken into the invisible, and the invisible responded with form. This is not philosophical. This is not poetic. This is law, and it is written in sacred text so clearly that no theologian can twist it away. By faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. Hebrews 11:3. Let that burn into your spirit. The seen comes from the spoken. You keep asking why nothing is moving, why you feel like you're running in circles, why you give, pray, believe, and still feel like you're waiting on something to shift. But let me offer the divine diagnosis. You are begging for what you were designed to build, and you are building nothing because you have not spoken. You are standing in a construction site, holding blueprints of desire in your heart, but refusing to speak the command that tells the workers, angelic and metaphysical alike, to begin. You say, I'm waiting on God. But in truth, God is waiting on you. God is waiting on your mouth to match your vision, waiting on your word to issue the permit, waiting on your command to activate the forces of form. Nothing in divine law moves by emotion alone. Heaven is not moved by pain. It is moved by spoken authority. You were not given a tongue so that you might describe your condition. You were given a tongue so that you might build your reality. I say this to you now with love, but without compromise. Stop begging. Stop pleading for crumbs when you have been given the creative command to form loaves. Stop looking up, asking, why not me? And start looking within and declaring, it is mine now. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. This is not entitlement, it is spiritual obedience. The law of formed reality does not reward good intentions. It rewards spoken initiation. Imagine this with me. A city lies barren, empty, ready for architecture. You stand at its edge, blueprint in hand, heart full of purpose. You cry out for change. You hope for beauty. But the builders cannot begin. They are skilled. They are ready. But they wait on one thing, the command. And the command must come through your word. Speak it, and they begin. Delay it, and nothing rises. So speak this with me now, not with hesitation, but with certainty. I now build my world with my word. Again, like you are placing stone upon stone in the unseen. I now build my world with my word. I no longer beg, I create. What I speak appears. The world is not indifferent. The world is not asleep. The world is waiting. Waiting on you to remember who you are. Waiting on you to open your mouth and command the blueprint into form. Waiting on your voice to echo the word that created the cosmos, so that your own corner of creation might rise in glory. And now you have spoken. And so it is. Everything you see, this room, this planet, this very breath, was once formless, silent, waiting. Everything in your world began in the unseen, not because of effort, not because of striving, but because of a spoken word. From the mountains to the marketplace, from the stars above to the steel beneath your feet, the visible was summoned by the invisible voice. The word always goes first. It leads, it frames, it declares what must be, and then what must be begins to move. There is no form without voice, and there is no voice without faith. The divine pattern has not changed since Genesis, let there be, and there was. And the apostle confirmed it in Hebrews 11:3. By faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. So I ask you, what is being framed by your mouth? What blueprint are your words drawing? What structure are your sentences shaping? Because whether you know it or not, your mouth is still a builder. It builds delay, or it builds destiny. It builds bondage, or it builds breakthrough. The law of formed reality is never paused. It is always working, either with you or against your silence. You say, I've been waiting so long. But child, you haven't been waiting. You've been withholding. You've been afraid to speak your wealth, afraid to declare your healing, afraid to call love good before it's proven itself. You have used your voice to report what is, not to release what shall be. But heaven doesn't move on reports. It moves on command. The angels, the elements, the energies of provision and protection do not respond to begging. They respond to boldness. You say, I've asked God. But have you told your world? Have you opened your mouth and said, this is my hour, this is my supply, this is my restoration, this is my divine compensation, and I will have it now? Because until you do, nothing changes. Why? Because nothing has been framed, nothing has been formed, nothing has been commanded. You do not build with worry, you do not build with thought, you build with word. You frame the unseen with your voice, and the substance of it must obey. But if your voice remains idle, your promise remains invisible. The building materials of your next miracle are sitting in spiritual storage, untouched, not because you are unworthy, not because you are unseen, but because you have not said, begin. So say it now, as one who remembers, as one who commands, as one who builds. I no longer report, I command. I do not beg, I build. I frame my world with divine speech. And let that be the sound that moves the machinery of manifestation. Let that be the sound that breaks the cycle of waiting and begins the blueprint of your next season. Because the law of formed reality is not a mystery. It is a tool, a divine system, a cosmic yes to the one who speaks. And now the system has heard your voice. And so it is. Your tongue is not ornamental. It is architectural. It is not there to fill silence or express feelings. It is not there to cope, to comment, to complain. It is the tool of design, the architect's pen, the blueprint holder of your destiny. Your tongue draws in the unseen, what will soon be constructed in the visible. Every phrase you utter lays brick. Every sentence seals foundation. Every rhythm you rehearse writes the code of your world. Your tongue does not wait for conditions to improve. It builds the conditions. Your tongue does not ask for permission. It sets the plan in motion. Heaven has placed a sacred trust in your mouth. For by divine law, your tongue frames your reality, not your thoughts, not your intentions, your word. Picture it with me now. You stand before a vast, vacant plot. No walls, no ceiling, no structure, but in your hand is a blueprint, folded into the shape of your vocabulary. It contains rooms called healing, hallways named provision, windows marked love, doors labeled breakthrough, and in the other hand, the hammer, your spoken word. And God, the great contractor, waits not for your fear, not for your tears, but for your instruction. Speak, he says, and I will build. But many of you have stood there, blueprint in hand, hammer untouched, wondering why nothing is rising. And the answer is simple, sacred, and piercing. You never spoke. Or worse, you used your hammer to destroy what you begged heaven to build. Because the tongue does not pause. It does not sit idle. It is always working, constructing beauty or chaos, freedom or bondage, grace or grief. You speak of lack, and walls of scarcity rise. You speak of delay, and ceilings descend. You speak of, it's always hard, and suddenly the hallway to ease disappears. You do not realize that you are holding holy tools, that every word is a construction order stamped with spiritual authority. And some of you have used these divine tools not to build sanctuaries, but to construct prisons, with your own tongue as the warden. But this ends now. Today, we return the hammer to holy use. We lift the tongue back to its sacred station. We speak not from mood, but from mandate. We declare not based on appearances, but based on the blueprint of truth. The house you long to live in, the peace, the overflow, the joy, is not found. It is built, and the construction begins in the mouth. So say this now, and say it as one who is ready to build what Spirit has already shown. My tongue holds the blueprint. My word is the hammer. I build wealth, healing, and love with what I say. And then declare this final warning, not in fear, but in reverence. I will no longer use divine tools to build disaster. Your words are not just sentences, they are scaffolding, they are structure, they are seed. And now, architect of divine reality, it is time to build what matches your soul. Begin. And so it is. The enemy is not the fear you feel, it's the agreement you make with it. The enemy is not the lack that shows up in your account. It's the silent nod you give it in your speech. The true danger is not in the pain, or the delay, or the struggle, but in the moment you agree with those things by repeating their message with your mouth. This is the law, and it never misses. Whatever you speak in agreement with, you empower. Whatever you vocalize in harmony with, you invite in. If you say, nothing is working, the law says, as you wish. If you say, it's always been hard for me, the law says, then let it continue. If you say, I can't see how this changes, then it won't. Not because the door is locked, but because your voice keeps the key hidden in fear. Let us go back to the garden, to the moment before history fractured. It was not the fruit that began the curse, it was the conversation. Eve did not fall when she ate. She fell when she agreed. The serpent did not force her hand. He only required her voice. He offered a contradiction to divine truth, and she spoke back, not in refusal, but in reason. And with that exchange, the covenant shifted. Do not miss this. It was the sentence that opened the curse. It was her mouth, not the bite, that made the breach. The tongue agreed with what was false, and the false became real. And so it is still. Fear knocks, and you answer with your language. Doubt whispers, and you amplify it with your storytelling. The enemy does not need to bind you. He simply needs you to speak what binds yourself. This is not superstition. This is spiritual technology. Agreement is access, and you have given access to things that were never ordained by God because you agreed with their report. But today, that report is revoked. Say this now, as one breaking a spiritual contract you never meant to sign. I revoke every false covenant I made with despair. Again, with rhythm, finality, and sacred defiance. I revoke every false covenant I made with despair. You may have said, I'll always be broke. You may have said, it's just my anxiety. You may have said, I never get chosen. But today, you reclaim the pen. You overwrite the agreement. You reverse the contract. You declare that your tongue is no longer leased out to lies. Let the invisible realm hear you clearly. I no longer speak for fear. I no longer narrate for delay. I no longer partner with pain through my mouth. You were never meant to echo the curse. You were designed to announce the kingdom. And now your voice is cleansed. Now your agreement is broken. And so it is. You've stood at the door for months, maybe years. You've cried in front of it. You've fasted near it. You've journaled about it, sung over it, asked others to pray for it. You've treated the door like a test or a punishment, as if your stillness might earn its mercy. But let me tell you what the Spirit told me, and I will not dress it in soft language. The door is not locked. It's voice-activated. It doesn't open to the desperate. It doesn't open to the silent. It doesn't open to the overly humble or the chronically patient. It opens when the one standing before it speaks. You see, divine doors are not like man's doors. They are not made of wood or steel. They are made of response. They are thresholds in the unseen that respond to the vibration of spiritual decree. And if the mouth is silent, the threshold remains invisible, not because it is against you, but because you have not called it into form. The word creates the way. The decree unlocks what looks immovable. You are not waiting on the door. The door is waiting on your voice print. I once knew a man who loved God with all his heart. He was generous, faithful, kind, and deeply discouraged. His income had dried up after a business failure, and every day he said the same thing: I'll wait on the Lord. But what he called faith was really fear cloaked in patience. He wasn't waiting, he was withholding his authority. I told him gently but firmly, God is not moved by how long you endure. He's moved by how boldly you declare. I asked him, have you told your supply to appear? He was stunned. He had been talking about his lack. He had been talking about waiting, but he had never once spoken to the supply. And that is why the door had not moved. So I gave him the command, speak now, not about what you lack, but to what you expect. And from his spirit rose a decree so simple, so holy, so aligned, that the atmosphere changed instantly. He said, I declare divine supply, and supply obeys my voice. Say it with him now, not to copy his story, but to initiate your own. I declare divine supply, and supply obeys my voice. Do you feel that shift? That is not emotional. That is law. The invisible has just been given instruction. Heaven's storage has been accessed. The door has heard the voice it was designed to respond to. The wealth that has been circling your life, waiting for a landing strip, has now received coordinates. So say it again, and this time, know that your voice print is a spiritual signature. I declare divine supply, and supply obeys my voice. Because the reason the door hasn't opened is that you hadn't yet spoken like it must, but now you have. And so it is. There came a moment in my life, not in the outer world, but in the secret chamber of my soul, when everything changed. Not because a miracle arrived, not because a door flew open or a windfall fell from the sky, but because I stopped narrating my pain. I stopped rehearsing the ache, stopped describing the delay, stopped giving a play-by-play report of everything that wasn't working. And in that moment, I saw clearly. I had not been speaking for transformation. I had been speaking for sympathy. And sympathy is not a creative force. Sympathy does not move spiritual law. It does not break cycles. It only affirms the wound. I used to tell people how hard it was. I wore my story like a badge, like proof of my endurance. I wanted others to see the depth of my struggle, the weight of what I had carried. I was addicted to describing it. Every closed door, every betrayal, every unhealed place. But the more I told the story, the more it embedded itself. And then one day, I realized something terrifying and liberating. I was not just living in the pain, I was speaking it into permanence. Every time I told it, I built it. Every time I described it, I fortified it. My mouth had become the architect of my own prison. I wasn't narrating for healing, I was narrating to be heard. But spiritual law does not respond to pity. It responds to command. So I laid it down. I stopped describing what was wrong. I stopped sharing the old evidence. I stopped repeating the scene where I was the victim, the one left behind, the one who suffered. And in its place, I built a new formula, a new rhythm, a new decree. I narrate my outcome, not my condition. Say it now with me, as one who is done feeding the past. I narrate my outcome, not my condition. This is not denial. This is dominion. I do not deny that there was pain. I simply deny it the power to shape my future. I do not deny the delay. I deny it permanence. I do not deny the heartbreak, but I refuse to make it my script. The law does not require your pity. It requires your instruction. The angels do not move on the sound of your wounds. They move on the sound of your word. When I began to speak from where I was going, instead of from where I had been, the entire terrain of my life began to rearrange. I must tell you plainly, pity is spiritual poison. It is a subtle agreement with powerlessness. It is a silent contract with stagnation. It is the belief that telling the story of your pain will heal you, but it only seals you into it. It is a performance of suffering that hopes for a rescuer while denying that the rescuer is already inside you, waiting for your voice to change. So today I ask you, are you narrating your life from old wounds or from divine vision? Are you describing the dungeon or declaring your deliverance? What would change if you stopped telling people what hurt you and started telling the law what it must build? Speak it with me now, as one who is detoxing from emotional dependence and stepping into spiritual rule. I narrate my outcome, not my condition. My mouth is no longer the echo of pain. It is now the command center of my resurrection. Because when I stopped describing my pain, I started constructing my promise. And so it is. There is a law, written not by man, but by spirit, that no divine gift enters your life without your verbal permission, not because God withholds your good, but because divine order never violates divine law. And the law is this: the word precedes the gift, the decree opens the door. The blessing cannot walk into a room where the tongue has not welcomed it. The Spirit is generous beyond measure, but it is not invasive. It waits at the threshold of your life, not for your need, but for your word. And until you give it permission to enter, the angels hold the package at the gates, waiting for the vibration of your voice to signal entry. I saw it once in a vision, gifts, brilliant, luminous, radiant with heaven's substance, lined up outside a city gate. Each one carried a name, a purpose, a season. There was wealth, there was healing, there was reconciliation, there was creativity, marriage, restoration, legacy. But none of them could enter. Why? Not because the person was unworthy, not because it was not time, but because the gate of the tongue was sealed, and the law had been written from eternity. You shall decree a thing, and it shall be established. Not, you shall desire a thing, not, you shall wish, but decree. You do not receive by silence, you receive by speech. Your word is your spiritual permission slip. It authorizes heaven's delivery. It removes the block. It opens the vault. It breaks the embargo. The good is already yours by spiritual inheritance, but until you speak it, it cannot occupy space in your visible world. This is not metaphor. It is divine technology. The law does not bypass your voice, it activates through it. And many of you have gifts circling you: jobs, love, clarity, healing, divine compensation that cannot land because you have not said, "I permit this, I accept this, I declare this." You have cried for it, you have waited, you have even fasted, but you have not authorized it with the one instrument that turns divine potential into manifested fact: your tongue. So say it now, not timidly, but with royal clarity, as one who holds the keys of the kingdom. I permit my good to appear now, by divine authority. Again, I permit my good to appear now, by divine authority. You are not begging, you are not wishing, you are opening the gate, you are lifting the latch, you are commanding the door to swing wide, and every blessing that has been waiting, every delayed promise, every withheld answer, every unseen provision, now hears its cue and begins to enter. Speak this and watch what was circling start to land. I revoke all denial. I cancel every block. I open my mouth and permit my destiny to manifest now. Because heaven has always been ready. Now, finally, so is your word. And so it is. Now that you have remembered who you are and what your voice is capable of, let us seal this moment with fire. Let us speak the new rhythm into the bones of your life. Let us activate, not through thought, not through effort, but through the spoken vibration of dominion. For it is not enough to know the truth, it must be voiced, it must be breathed into being. It must leave your mouth and land upon the fabric of reality as a holy instruction. This is your spoken permission round. This is the verbal contract with heaven. And we begin not in doubt, but in power. Say this with me now, and say it with a spirit that has stopped asking for change and has begun commanding it. I give my word permission to shape my world. Again, louder inside your soul than anything fear ever tried to whisper, I give my word permission to shape my world. Do you feel that? That is the shift of divine law awakening under your voice. That is the machinery of manifestation hearing its instruction. That is the truth stepping onto the stage. Now declare this, and let the lie of limitation fall off like old skin. Nothing is too far, nothing is too late. Yes, again, nothing is too far, nothing is too late. Because spirit is not confined by time. Your delay is not divine. It is verbal. And now that the silence has ended, so has the delay. And one more, for the part of you that thought being stuck was a sentence. Let this be your new verdict. I am not stuck. I am silent no more. Say it again until the old agreement cracks. I am not stuck. I am silent no more. Because you were never trapped. You were only quiet, and now your voice has returned. And so it is. There is a story, sacred and sobering, tucked into the opening pages of the Gospel of Luke. It is not often preached in full power, but I speak it now to awaken you to a truth too many overlook. Zechariah was a priest, a righteous man, a spiritual servant, yet, when the angel appeared and gave him the word of divine fulfillment, he questioned it. He didn't believe the message could possibly unfold as spoken. And for that moment of disbelief, not rebellion, not wickedness, but simply unbelief, the angel struck him mute. His voice was removed, not as punishment, but as protection. For the law will not allow a man to speak against his own miracle once it has been decreed by heaven. The word had gone forth, and any word to the contrary would slow or sabotage it. So he was silenced, not forever, but until the manifestation was irreversible. His tongue was sealed until the child was born, until the prophecy was visible, until there was no room left for doubt to interfere. Do you understand the weight of this story? Your word is so powerful that even heaven must intercept it if it contradicts the plan. The mute curse was not cruelty, it was containment. But here's the deeper warning. Many of you have imposed a mute curse on yourselves, not from heaven, not from angels, but from fear, from internal resistance, from spiritual amnesia. And you are not seeing your miracle, not because it's denied, but because your voice is missing. You've said, "I'm just being careful," but in truth, you've been bound. You've said, "I don't want to say the wrong thing," but the silence itself has become the wrong thing. The mute curse lives wherever the divine word is needed and never spoken. It haunts the moments when the miracle is near, but the decree is absent, and I have seen it over and over, a healing so close, but the mouth stays shut. A financial breakthrough ready to drop, but the person refuses to speak their abundance aloud. A relationship meant for restoration, but the tongue won't release the sentence of reconciliation. And so the miracle is delayed, not by God, not by timing, but by the mute curse of the unbelieving mouth. But hear me now. There is a reversal. There is a holy breaking of silence. There is a flame that falls and loosens the tongue, just as it did in the upper room when Spirit came like fire and gave men utterance again. That fire is still available, and that fire speaks now through you. So declare this, as one shaking off the old silence: my tongue is loosed with divine fire. Again, my tongue is loosed with divine fire. Let the shackles of self-censorship fall. Let the cords of confusion snap. Let the delay end, not because the blessing was denied, but because your voice has returned. Say it until it burns through every layer of disbelief. My tongue is loosed with divine fire. I speak what God has said. I echo divine law, and miracles obey. The mute curse is over. The silence is broken. The word is alive. And so it is. There is a frequency in the realm of spirit that only the bold can tune into. It is not the language of hope, nor the murmur of pleading. It is not the desperate chant of the almost faithful. It is the voice of those who have seen with the eye of the soul and therefore speak with the tongue of completion. These are not the ones who say, "I hope it will happen." These are not the ones who say, "I believe it might come." These are the ones who speak as if it has already arrived, because in the eternal dimension of spirit, it already has. Faith is not forward, it is finished. And the mouth that creates is the mouth that speaks from the end, not toward it. Too many souls are speaking to their good, trying to talk it into reality. But the law does not obey the insecure tongue. The law responds to finality, to command, to closure, to the word that says, "It is done," even while the eyes still see lack. The mouth is the midwife of the invisible. It brings forth what has no evidence yet, and that is why it must speak as though the evidence has already arrived. Because the evidence doesn't produce the word produces the evidence. This is not delusion. This is dominion. When God created the world, He did not say, "Let's hope the light comes." He did not say, "Maybe the land will appear." He said, "Let there be," and it was. Why? Because divine speech operates in completion, not negotiation. Your command must do the same. When you speak healing, speak as one who is whole. When you call for supply, speak as one who already has it. When you declare reconciliation, speak as one who has seen the table already prepared. This is not fiction. This is how the law works. You are not waiting for the blessing. You are simply aligning with the timeline where it's already done. So say it with me now, not as a request, but as a conclusion. I speak from the end, not toward it. Say it again, like your soul is catching up to your spirit. I speak from the end, not toward it. And then declare the formula that shifts the entire terrain of your life. I see what isn't seen, and I call it done. Let that phrase live in your bones. Let it be the rhythm of your rising, the soundtrack of your steps. I see what isn't seen, and I call it done. Because heaven doesn't need to be convinced, it needs to be called. And when you speak as one who has already received, the blessing comes rushing, not because it finally appeared, but because you finally matched its frequency. This is the speech of the fulfilled. This is the language of the crowned. This is how divine things are made visible. And so it is. There are phrases you've repeated so many times, they've become architecture. Not just thoughts, but spiritual scaffolding, holding up the very circumstances you say you want gone. You've said, "I'm waiting on God," so often that delay feels holy. You've said, "It's always been hard," and now hard has made a home in your narrative. You've said, "Nothing ever lasts," and then watched every blessing evaporate. These are not harmless expressions. They are living codes. They are metaphysical contracts your soul has signed again and again, and as long as they remain unburned, the life you desire cannot take shape. But hear me. Every false script can be rewritten. Every lie you've spoken over yourself can be consumed in divine fire. This is the work now, not soft, not sentimental, but surgical, sacred, precise. I want you to see it with me now. A scroll in your hand. It's tattered, heavy, and filled with phrases you've whispered in disappointment, muttered in traffic, confessed in casual conversations, and cried alone at night. Maybe it's not for me. It's too late now. I never get what I want. Every sentence etched into the scroll like law. But then, light. Fire not from earth, but from spirit begins to consume the scroll, not with destruction, but with transformation. What was written in fear is now being rewritten in power. The tongue that once surrendered to circumstance now commands creation. The mind that once echoed trauma now sings truth. This is not poetic. This is metaphysical editing, and it begins the moment you refuse to be loyal to your old vocabulary. I think of the woman who came to me weeping, exhausted by life. She said, "It's always been hard for me. Ever since I was a child, struggle just follows me." I didn't contradict her experience. I contradicted her agreement with it. I asked, "Why are you still narrating that story? Why are you branding your future with yesterday's pain?" She paused. She was so used to being understood through her wounds that she didn't know how to speak without them. I gave her a new phrase, simple, sacred, sharp. It was hard, and now it isn't. She blinked. She whispered it. Then she said it louder. And by the end of the week, things that had been blocked for years began to move. Not because the facts changed, but because her phrasing did. Now it's your turn. Take these false scripts and place them in the fire. Say it aloud. I burn every phrase that bound me. I revoke every word I spoke in fear. I speak a new story, one aligned with divine law. And now rewrite it. Old, I'm waiting on God. New, I move in power. Old, it's always been hard. New, I walk in ease and favor. Old, I just hope something changes. New, I speak and everything aligns. Do not let your future be built from cursed vocabulary. Do not let your destiny be narrated by old wounds. This is the burning. This is the rewriting. And from the ashes of every false phrase, your true life begins. And so it is. There is a moment in the life of every soul where the past must be silenced, not with memory loss, but with metaphysical command. A holy rupture in the narrative, a divine override of every old agreement that ever passed through your lips like casual wind, but landed in the soil of your life like a curse. And that moment is now. For you have spoken lack, and lack obeyed. You have spoken waiting, and delay took its seat. You have spoken small, and the world shrank to match it. But today, you speak as Ezekiel did, not to report what is, but to resurrect what must be. You speak to bones, you speak to dust, you speak to what looks beyond repair, and by law it hears you. It is written, "Prophesy over these bones and say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord." Ezekiel 37:4. He did not mourn over the bones. He did not journal about the bones. He did not wait for a sign. He spoke, and the bones rose. The structure reassembled. Life returned to what had been written off. This is not history, it is template. The dry places in your life are waiting not for effort, not for emotion, but for utterance. And the utterance must come not from memory, but from mastery. You do not repeat the old timeline. You erase it with your mouth. Say this with me now, not as an affirmation, but as a spoken reset. I erase the old timeline by speaking the new. Again, with spiritual certainty. I erase the old timeline by speaking the new. This is how divine law works. It does not erase pain by pity. It erases it by replacement. And the replacement begins in your phrasing. You must break every inner pact you made with poverty, not just financial poverty, but poverty of joy, of love, of clarity, of worth. These are contracts you signed with your speech, often without knowing it. But now you know, and now you rewrite. Speak these now, and speak them not from surface, but from spirit. I do not expect delay. I declare instant, divine right action. I do not identify with struggle. I walk in effortless overflow. I no longer wait for wealth. I carry it. I do not fear the future. I command it. Do you feel that? That is the old structure crumbling. That is the dry bones quaking. That is the invisible hearing its new instructions. You are not asking for change. You are rewriting time. You are pulling down the scaffolding of old thought forms and building new ones with syllables soaked in spirit. Speak into the valley of your own life and say, "Hear me, lack. You no longer live here. Hear me, fear. You are no longer fed. Hear me, destiny. You have my voice again." This is the metaphysical pen. This is the erasure and the engraving. And every timeline must now bend to the one you just spoke. And so it is. Now we seal what has been rewritten. Now we speak not as one requesting, not as one rehearsing, but as one ruling. This is the voice of one who remembers that time bows to the tongue, that the present bends to the phrase, that the timeline does not dictate what you receive, your decree does. Every syllable you're about to speak is not floating, it is forming. It does not drift into the atmosphere as wishful poetry. It cuts through layers of delay and builds structure in the unseen. These are not affirmations. They are divine signatures. These are the stamps of authority placed upon the moment, and the moment must now obey. Say this with me now, not as repetition, but as command. My present obeys my voice. Again, my present obeys my voice. Let it be said until the walls of your old timeline tremble and shift. My present obeys my voice. There is no delay that can withstand that decree. Now this one, say it until hope is replaced by knowing, my word is not hoping, it is sending. Again, my word is not hoping, it is sending. You are not casting wishes into the void. You are launching assignments into the spirit realm. You are sending angels with instructions. You are sending structure into motion. You are not hoping for change. You are initiating it. Now let the final seal come through the most sacred rhythm of truth. I speak, and what I say must appear. Say it like the morning light obeys it. I speak, and what I say must appear. There is no question mark in that phrase, no uncertainty, no doubt. Only spiritual law responding to spiritual authority. You are no longer waiting for the world to align. You are speaking alignment into the world. And every moment from now on must match what just came out of your mouth, because your timeline is your tongue, and your voice is the architect of now. And so it is. If you look only with your eyes, you will always feel late. You will always feel behind, stuck, unseen, undercompensated. You will always mistake the silence for abandonment and the delay for denial. But child, hear me now. The law does not begin in the visible. It begins in the unseen. The movement always starts beneath the surface. The shift always starts in realms your senses cannot detect. The manifestation of your healing, your wealth, your relationship, your miracle, it begins in spirit, and spirit moves in response to your word. This is not an opinion. This is not hope. This is divine order, confirmed by Scripture and anchored in law. Romans 4:17 declares, God calleth those things which be not as though they were. That is not a poetic gesture. That is a divine strategy. The things that are not yet visible are already real in the higher realm, and the tongue is the bridge. The voice is the connector. The spoken word is the lightning rod that draws the invisible into the realm of form. But the law is clear. You must call it before you see it. You must speak it while it still looks impossible. You must water the soil before you ever see a sprout. And that is where most miss the miracle. You are standing over the ground, demanding fruit, but you have not poured water into the roots. You keep watching the leaves, but it's not the leaves that receive instruction, it's the roots. And the roots live in the unseen. That is where faith works. That is where speech goes first. The word does not land on fruit. The word lands on essence. And when you speak with divine authority, the roots begin to awaken. The soil begins to stir. What looked like delay was just depth being established. What looked like silence was actually saturation. So hear this now, and let it burn through every impatient part of your mind. The unseen moves first. If you do not see it yet, it does not mean it has not begun. It means the roots are taking hold. It means the blueprint is being laid. It means the scaffolding of spirit is erecting your structure in a place your natural eyes cannot yet enter. But you are not natural. You are divine, and you have been given the gift of sight through declaration. When you speak, the unseen obeys. When you call a thing done, the unseen aligns. When you speak what you cannot yet see, you prove that you are operating by law, not by logic. So say this with me, not because you see it, but because you command it. I call those things which be not as though they were. Say it again, and let your roots drink. I call those things which be not as though they were. Let your timeline hear it. Let the realm of delay be broken. Let the unseen know you are no longer waiting to react, you are now creating. And declare this final truth as one who understands the rhythm of manifestation. I water roots, not leaves. I speak where it matters, and the unseen now moves for me. It is moving, it already moved. And soon the visible will testify. And so it is. There is no curse more dangerous than the one you speak casually. No hex more binding than the sentence you toss in jest, in frustration, in passing. But that heaven still hears as a command. You think you're venting. You think you're joking. You think you're being realistic. But the law does not filter tone. The law responds only to vibration, to decree, to structure. And every word you speak, no matter how flippantly, is either building or breaking, loosening or locking. You don't need an enemy when your own mouth is narrating your defeat. You don't need sabotage from others when your own voice is anchoring delay into your timeline. You say, nothing ever works out for me, and Spirit says, as you wish. You say, I'm always broke, and the divine ledger aligns to that frequency. You say, I'm exhausted every day, and your body obeys it. You say, this is just how it is for people like me, and the invisible gate slams shut in agreement. But you don't realize it, because you think a spell is something someone casts with candles and rituals. No, child. The most dangerous spells are the ones you cast with your own lips, without even meaning to. Every complaint is a command. Every sarcastic declaration of failure is a seed planted in the fertile soil of the subconscious. Every phrase repeated in frustration becomes a prophecy. I must say it plainly. You curse yourself without knowing, not because you are evil, but because you are unaware of your own divine technology. Your tongue is not neutral. It is loaded with law, and the law does not sleep. It records. It executes. It does not wait for you to mean it. It responds to the pattern. It reacts to the rhythm. If you keep saying nothing ever changes, then nothing ever will. Not because the world is against you, but because you have locked the gate with your voice. But there is hope, immediate, beautiful, burning hope. Because just as you cursed yourself in ignorance, you can now bless yourself in awareness. Just as you unknowingly agreed with despair, you can now intentionally align with dominion. And it begins here with a cleansing, not of the heart, not of the hands, but of the tongue. Say it now with reverence and responsibility. I now cleanse my tongue of every seed of despair. Again, like the soul that has just realized it's been watering weeds, I now cleanse my tongue of every seed of despair. Let the old phrases die. Let the casual curses be uprooted. Let the unconscious spellcasting end. You are not voiceless. You are not cursed. You are powerful beyond words, and now your words must match that power. Declare it one more time as law. I do not speak defeat, even in jest. I do not speak bondage, even in sarcasm. I speak as a creator, not a complainer. And now that you know, you can never speak the same again. And so it is. Do not waste another moment describing the storm. Do not spend another breath reporting how violent the wind is, how loud the thunder has become, how long the waves have been crashing. You were not called to be a meteorologist in your spiritual life. You were not sent here to announce atmospheres. You were sent to command them. The greatest example ever given was not a man who avoided storms, but a man who stood up in the boat, wiped sleep from his eyes, looked directly at chaos, and spoke. Peace, be still. That was not a wish. That was not a plea. It was a command, a verbal dominion over visible disorder. He did not talk about the storm. He talked to it. And that is where most lose their spiritual ground. They think describing the problem is the same as dealing with it. They think naming the pain is the same as neutralizing it. They narrate the chaos, hoping it will earn them sympathy, attention, or divine intervention. But heaven does not move on emotional weather reports. Heaven moves when a voice, aligned with divine authority, declares, "This ends now." The storm will not settle because you wish it would. It will only obey when you tell it to. You are not at the mercy of the wind. You are the one meant to quiet it. Jesus didn't say, "Let's see how bad this gets." He didn't say, "This is the worst I've ever seen." He didn't even say, "God, please help us." He commanded the atmosphere, "Peace, be still." That is the spiritual formula. That is the tone. That is the assignment. Your job is not to get everyone on the boat to calm down. Your job is to calm the sea itself with your mouth. And now I ask you, where is your storm? What corner of your life feels loud, erratic, out of control? Is it money? Is it your body? Is it a relationship? A deadline? A diagnosis? Name it, but not as a victim. Name it as a voice of divine law. And then speak into it now, not softly, but as one who has stood up from spiritual sleep and remembered who they are. Say it now. Peace, be still. Again, peace, be still. Now, apply it specifically. Peace, be still in my finances. Peace, be still in my body. Peace, be still in my relationships. Peace, be still in my mind. This is not visualization. This is spiritual governance. The storm is not in charge of you. The atmosphere does not write your story. You are the mouthpiece of calm. You are the voice of settled seas. You are the one sent to prove that divine order still answers to human decree. Say this final line, and let the winds stop in your world. I do not describe storms. I silence them. And the weather of your world is now changed. And so it is. There is a voice beneath your voice, a whisper beneath every declaration, a subtle current of belief running under the surface of your speech. You speak affirmation with your lips, but what is your shadow voice saying in the silence that follows? You say, "Money flows to me," but the echo beneath it mutters, "It never stays." You declare, "I am chosen," yet your inner murmur says, "But not for long." This is the work too few dare to face, for it is not the loud public affirmations that shape your world, It is the quiet, constant prophecy of the inner tongue. And whether you are aware of it or not, your shadow voice is always speaking, always planting, always narrating. This voice does not shout. It repeats. And its power lies not in its volume, but in its frequency. You may not even hear it directly, but you feel its consequences. That sudden doubt that creeps in after a declaration, that emotional drop after a hopeful conversation, that tightness in your chest after dreaming aloud. Why? Because the shadow voice has not yet been retrained, and it does not care what you want. It only repeats what you have let it believe. It says things like, "It's too late. Nothing ever changes. I'm just not the one who gets that kind of life. They always leave. It never works." And those phrases are not harmless. They are not just internal noise. They are unconscious decrees, and the law honors them just the same. But hear me now. That voice is not the enemy. It is simply misinformed. It is the echo of old agreements, past pain, generational scripts, and like any echo, it only continues if you feed it space. So now, we reclaim that space. We intercept the whisper and overwrite it, not with force, but with divine rhythm, not with effort, but with command. The way to transform the shadow voice is not to silence it, but to give it a new song, a new loop, a new prophecy. And that prophecy begins with this phrase: "My hidden word becomes divine outcome." Say it now to every subconscious script that thought it could run your world. My hidden word becomes divine outcome. Again, my hidden word becomes divine outcome. This is not magic. This is metaphysical law. The inner voice must match the outer command. And when they align, manifestation becomes inevitable. There is no longer contradiction between what you say and what you believe. The old phrase, "It's too late," is now rewritten as, "I move in divine timing." The shadow statement, "It never works," is now, "All things work together for my highest good." The inner doubt, "I'm not the one," becomes, "I am divinely selected and continually supported." This is the voice you were always meant to carry, not just on your lips, but in your depths. This is the tongue behind the tongue, finally transformed. This is the prophecy that plants fruit-bearing trees, even in invisible soil. And this is the new reality, born from the new inner voice, because now your shadow agrees with the light. And so it is. Now you speak not from theory, but from thunder. Not from weakness, but from weathered wisdom. You have seen the storm. You have sat in the boat of your own waiting. You have felt the winds of fear press against your ribs. And now you do not tremble, you speak. This is not passive peace. This is not gentle hoping. This is the peace that proclaims. This is the calm that does not ask permission. This is the stillness that overrides chaos by law, by frequency, by decree. These affirmations are not decorations. They are weapons. They are stabilizers. They are declarations that command the clouds and silence the waves. Speak them with authority. Speak them like you know the sea is listening. Say it now, and say it loud enough that your spirit hears it echo into every room of your being. My peace is not passive, it is proclaimed. Again, my peace is not passive, it is proclaimed. This is not the peace that waits for external evidence. This is the peace that creates it. Now speak to the atmosphere itself. Let your tongue instruct the elements of your own emotional sky. The storm hears me. Once more, with clarity and command. The storm hears me. Yes, it does. It hears your spiritual posture. It hears your tone. It hears your alignment. The storm is not in charge. You are. And now, let the final word settle like oil on the waters. I declare stillness, and stillness appears. Say it again, not as a wish, but as a law. I declare stillness, and stillness appears. This is your rhythm now. This is your breath work. This is your power. No longer reporting the chaos, commanding the calm. no longer hoping for silence, speaking it into form. Because peace was never the absence of conflict, it was always the presence of voice. And now your voice has returned, and so it is. There is a divine signature written into every miracle. The end is always spoken from the middle. God never waits for the evidence before he declares the outcome. The Most High does not respond to circumstances. He commands them. It is written in Isaiah 46:10, I declare the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done. This is not poetic language. This is metaphysical law. Heaven speaks harvest when the field is still dry. Heaven announces victory when the battle still rages. Heaven proclaims the crown while the prisoner still sits in chains. And you, child of divine inheritance, are called to speak exactly the same way. But what do most do? They speak the middle from the middle. They narrate the symptoms. They analyze the drought. They echo the pit. They call it honesty, but the law calls it agreement. And what you agree with, you extend. What you narrate, you nourish. And so you stay stuck, not because there is no power, but because your tongue is aligned with the valley instead of the mountain. Your tongue is partnered with the pain instead of the promise. And your words are not waiting to confirm what is. They are meant to declare what shall be. So I ask you plainly, and with holy fire, can you declare healing while symptoms still scream? Can you prophesy wealth while the account shows negative? Can you proclaim restoration while the phone stays silent and the door stays closed? Can you stand in the furnace and say, I am not burned? Can you look at the tomb and say, He is risen? Can you sit in the pit and speak of reward as if you've already received it? This is the test. This is the challenge. This is the activation. Say it now, with trembling faith if you must, but say it as law. I speak the end from the middle. Again, I speak the end from the middle. Let it echo through the hallway of every delay. Let it thunder into the cavern of every waiting place. Let it rise like incense into the face of God. This is the kind of speech that moves heaven. This is the voice of the prophet, not the prisoner. This is the voice of the heir, not the orphan. This is the voice that silences the pit, not because the pit disappears, but because you now outrank it. Say this with me, as the final seal of your new frequency. I speak reward from the pit. Yes, I speak reward from the pit. Because I do not speak as one trapped, I speak as one enthroned, and my word does not match my surroundings. My word transforms them. The middle is no longer my identity. The middle is my pulpit. And from here, I speak the end. And so it is. There is a reason I teach by example, not just by principle. For the soul often learns best when it sees truth clothed in life. So let me take you now into the sacred archives, the case files of spirit-activated victory. I remember the woman well, a mother, trembling but determined, desperate not just for a remedy, but for a revelation. Her child had been ill for weeks. The doctors gave medicine, but no answers. Friends offered sympathy, but no solutions. Her own faith wavered under the weight of appearances. She sat before me, wrung out with worry, and asked, "What else can I do?" And I told her, "Stop praying from panic. Speak from power." You see, she had been careful, too careful. She begged in soft tones, hoping not to offend heaven with too much boldness. But heaven does not respond to hesitancy. Heaven is not moved by well-behaved worry. Heaven is activated by dominion, by command, by clarity. I told her, "Speak one decree, not 10, not a paragraph, just one line, and say it like it's already done." She nodded, her hands shaking. I gave her the sentence, "Divine life flows through my child now, and nothing can oppose it." I told her to speak it once and let the law take over. She went home, and with every ounce of authority she had never used before, she stood by her child's bed, placed her hand upon their chest, and spoke. "Divine life flows through my child now, and nothing can oppose it." That's it. No weeping, no bargaining, no theatrics, just a decree. And within 24 hours, the fever broke. Within 3 days, full recovery. Within a week, the doctors said, "We don't know what shifted." But she knew. She had stopped narrating the sickness and had started commanding the truth. This is not a story of chance. This is not a fluke. This is a case file of spiritual law in action. The spoken word did what medicine could not. The tongue became the instrument of healing, not because it was dramatic, but because it was bold. Heaven does not reward desperation. Heaven responds to alignment. And when your mouth becomes a mirror of divine authority, your life must change to reflect it. Say this now as one who has remembered their inheritance. Heaven honors bold mouths, not careful prayers. Again, heaven honors bold mouths, not careful prayers. You are not here to beg for crumbs. You are here to declare the feast. And if a single decree can rewrite the outcome of a sickbed, imagine what your consistent command can do to your finances, your relationships, your calling. Stop waiting for confirmation. Speak as the one who confirms it. One sentence, one shift, one miracle. And so it is. Let me open the vault once more and reveal another case, not of coincidence, not of luck, but of spoken law in motion. A man came to me, head low, pockets empty, pride eroded by months of closed doors. He said he had applied everywhere. He said he had followed every lead. He said he had prayed. Oh, how he had prayed. But I looked at him and said something that startled him. "You have not spoken." He blinked. "I've begged," he said. "I've asked God every day." And I replied, "Begging is not commanding. Asking is not decreeing. Heaven has heard your need, but your silence has blocked your supply." You see, he thought the job would come through action, effort, hustle. He believed the lie the world worships, that movement equals manifestation. But divine law does not respond to chaos. It responds to clarity. He had written resumes, not spoken results. So I gave him a phrase and told him, "Say this out loud, not in a whisper, not in a whisper of doubt, but with the voice of one who already holds the offer in hand." The phrase was simple, surgical, sacred. The perfect position is already mine. It comes swiftly, under grace, in perfect timing. He stood outside under the open sky, and for the first time, he opened his mouth not to describe the void, but to call in the form. He said it once, twice. He repeated it as he walked. He said it like a drumbeat until it became his rhythm. And then, just 48 hours later, he received a message from someone he hadn't spoken to in years. "I thought of you this morning," they said. "I heard of a role that suits you perfectly. I don't know why, but I feel you're the one." The offer came without application, without hustle, without grind. Not because he had finally done enough, but because he had finally spoken enough. "Child, let me tell you what I told him. There is nothing standing between you and your good but your silence. Not economy, not timing, not competition, just silence. And silence is not humility. Silence is self-sabotage when you know the truth. Every good and perfect gift has already been assigned to your spirit, but law requires that it be called forth. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you declare. Say it with me now, and say it like your next provision is waiting for this moment. Nothing stands between me and my good but my silence. Again, nothing stands between me and my good but my silence. Now break it. Break the mute barrier. Speak your next chapter into motion. Say, "I now command my perfect opportunity to appear. I now speak alignment into every part of my path." This is not a story. This is not a suggestion. This is a strategy. The only question is, will you use your voice? Because the moment you do, your miracle moves. And so it is. There comes a moment when the soul must graduate from whisper to war cry, from hoping to heralding, from murmuring requests to commanding results. That moment is now. Your tongue is no longer timid. It is trained. Your voice is no longer a servant to the circumstance. It is the source of shift. You no longer repeat what you see. You speak what must be. These words you're about to say are not affirmations in the soft, sentimental sense. They are spiritual orders given by one who knows they were sent here to reign, not to react. Let your mouth rise now to match your inheritance. Say it now, not as a theory, but as an identity. I speak as one with God. Again, firmer, I speak as one with God. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. This is the knowing that your spirit is a branch of the vine, and your voice carries the current of heaven. When you speak, the invisible listens. When you declare, form obeys. Say it again until it reshapes your posture. I speak as one with God. Now affirm the backup, the divine contract, the reason you no longer need to second-guess your word. Heaven backs my word with form. Say it like the clouds are waiting. Heaven backs my word with form. Because the spiritual realm does not wait to see if you're worthy. It waits to see if you're willing to speak with clarity, willing to declare with authority, willing to break the cycle of silence and say, now. And now, the final blow to hesitation. I am not hoping, I am commanding. Once more, I am not hoping, I am commanding. Let every prayer be elevated. Let every intention be ignited. Let every spoken line carry the voltage of divine law. You are not here to test the waters. You are here to part them. You are not here to wait for change. You are here to declare it. And now you have. And so it is. Now I ask you, not softly, but sacredly, will you speak as if it's done, or will you stay quiet and stuck, waiting for some cosmic permission slip that will never arrive? Divine law does not respond to silence, and heaven does not move for the passive. The truth has been given to you. The law has been laid bare. The examples, the scriptures, the declarations, the fire in your bones, it has all been handed to you like a sword. But the sword is only as powerful as the hand that wields it. And your hand, dear listener, is your mouth. You cannot absorb this video and expect change. You must activate it. You must declare it. You must open your mouth and let the word made flesh come through your own voice. No more quiet agreements with lack. No more spiritual hesitancy disguised as patience. No more watching others shift while you sit in shadows you were born to outshine. Speak, because if you don't, everything stays the same. Not because spirit has withheld anything, but because you refuse to claim it. So here is your sacred charge, your line in the sand, your call to demonstration. Go to the comments right now and speak your decree. Not a hope, a word, not a request, a command. Write, my word is my weapon and I use it. Say it aloud as you type it. Let your soul hear you stake the claim. Let heaven know you've entered the game of life as a master, not a spectator. Let every delay, every doubt, every shadow hear your voice and know you are no longer silent. And if something moved in you, if something shifted, stirred, awakened, then return to this altar of speech often. Subscribe not for entertainment, but for enforcement. This is not a channel of information. This is a gathering of commanders, a temple of spoken law. And you, my friend, have just stepped into your dominion. Speak, and so it is.